The open portion of this meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Houston Community College System is now reconvened at. Okay, we're going to go to action item number 7, which is the rescission of an action taken at the May 19th, 2011 regular board meeting. I move that the board rescind the action taken at the May 19th, 2011 regular board meeting regarding acquisition of the 21.86 tract of land in District 6. Is there a second?
Second. You move the item yourself?
I move the item myself. Okay. Any discussion regarding this?
No, move the question.
All in favor, raise your hand. All in favor of this rescission, raise your hand. All opposed, no objection. Rescission for the purchase of the land of the the action taken on May 19th, 2011 is unanimous. We're now going to move to action item number 6. I move that the board approve the purchase of the 21.86 acre tract of land located on the north side of Westheimer Road between Eldridge Parkway and Highway 6 for Houston Community College's public purposes for a purchase price in an amount not to exceed $8.3 million based on an appraisal conducted by an independent appraiser, CBRE, that the administration be authorized to use non-debt dollars from our general unrestricted funds for the purchase, and that we authorize the chancellor or her designee to take any and all further action necessary to close the transaction, including negotiating and executing a purchase and sale contract, proceeding with due diligence on the property, and executing any other documents for the transaction and closing. And let me be very clear on the record here, the board is not, by this action, establishing or expressing an intent to establish a campus on this location. It is merely purchasing the land. If at some time in the future there is a desire to establish a campus on this location, there will be a strategic planning process. The administration will come to the board with a recommendation. The board will then decide whether to do that, and if there are any other legal steps that need to be taken with respect to any other agency, that action will be taken. All right, is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Okay, I now ask that...
We've got to vote on it.
Hang on. I now ask that we have Ms. Singleton, Maureen Singleton, who's one of our counsel, approach with Mr. Pat Paulin. And I believe we have the appraiser from C.B. Richard Ellis. Is that correct? And Mr. Sadler, welcome, and if you'd approach us as well. Approach the podium, please. Okay, first of all, with respect to the property itself, we are recommending, or you have recommended to us, the administration, that we authorize the administration to spend up to $8.3 million for the purchase price. Would someone please explain to me how we came up with that value of the property and that value for the purchase price?
Well, if it's all right, I'm going to comment. Basically, the appraiser, Philip Sadler with C.B. Richard Ellis, did a thorough investigation and based this appraisal, from my reading of the appraisal, you based it on what market comps were for market sales and listings in the area. And would you like to address anything else, Philip?
Well, we take all that information, we consider the neighborhood itself, and then we compare and contrast, if you will, those different listings and sales against the subject property, and we determine a price per square foot in this case. From that price per square foot, we've determined our value.
Mr. Sadler, is there a professional organization or a professional standard that's set forth for how appraisers should go about appraising the property?
There is. It's called USPAP. That's the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice. That's actually a standard that's established, and it establishes standards not only for real property appraisal but also for personal property appraisal. Those are all not fall under, but as a member of the Appraisal Institute, we always follow USPAP standards. The other is that those USPAP standards are both accepted by the federal government and by all the banking banking institutions.
Did you follow those practices and procedures and those standards in conducting your appraisal on this property?
I did.
I might ask you, sir, do you have any benefit that you or C.B. Richard Ellis gain from whether or not the college chooses to purchase this property?
None whatsoever.
You got paid a flat fee for conducting the appraisal, and it didn't make any difference to you if the value was $1 or $100 million, whether we bought it or we didn't buy it?
None whatsoever.
So you just went out to appraise it without any, and you were paid this flat fee?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. And I've seen your report, but you did a full, complete, and thorough report. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, I note that the appraisal that's set by the Harris County Appraisal District for this property is less than the appraised value that you came up with. Can you explain why that is, please?
It's a subject of two different things. First is that the appraisal district itself is going to appraise the properties in an area according to equal value to all of them. A very simple example of that would be if you have a 2,000 square foot house, your neighbor has a 2,000 square foot house, they're equally the same, both have a brick veneer, both on the same size lot, they should appreciably, and both built, let's say, in the same time period, within 5 years of each other, they should both be valued at a per square foot value that's reasonably close to each other. There's not any difference, but if he paints his blue, that he should be at, let's say, $100 a square foot, you should be at $75. So what the appraisal district typically uses is what's called an automated valuation model that says all houses in a certain area, neighborhood, and age would be worth $75 a foot. Now, this particular property here, the way that it is valued, it actually has an agricultural exemption, as we call them in Texas. So rather than $60,000 a year, which is what this property would pay if it was being valued at a market value that the appraisal district has put on it, instead, that same property pays about $4,000 in taxes because of the agricultural exemption.
Actually, it's about $40 in taxes.
Is that it?
Yeah, $40.
It's extremely low.
Yeah.
And in addition, this family that owns the property has owned it since the 1980s. And when you have an ag exemption on a property, the Harris County Appraisal District doesn't always go in on a regular basis and evaluate it and re-up or update its appraisal.
So when you did your appraisal and evaluation, you had to evaluate based on the highest and best use according to accepted national standards, correct?
That's exactly right.
But the Harris County Appraisal District doesn't evaluate on that basis.
They do not.
Okay, so anybody who's trying to confuse the two is intentionally trying to confuse apples and oranges.
That's correct.
Now, suppose somebody intentionally confused apples and oranges and tried to claim that the value was the same as the appraisal district said and said you guys should go in and condemn the property. How would that actually work?
There's a specific procedure in the Texas Property Code regarding condemnations. The first thing that you have to do is get an appraisal just like HCC got. And then you have to present that to the property owner. You cannot present the tax appraisal as your appraisal to the property owner because it's inadmissible hearsay in a condemnation hearing. You have to then work with that property owner, make a bona fide offer. You have to negotiate, and only in the event that you cannot negotiate a price with this property owner, then can you condemn the property. And generally that's going to be the floor. So whatever your appraisal is that you have gotten is going to be the floor of what you get because you have to go before commissioners. The seller will get an appraisal and it's likely to be higher.
So in this particular case, the appraisal that you conducted, Mr. Sadler, as I understand it, was slightly in excess of the price that we paid.
That's correct.
So we actually paid less than your appraisal. And if we went through, is that correct?
Excuse me, sir?
We actually paid less
Yes,
than
you did.
your appraisal.
Yes, you did.
And if we went to court, since that appraisal would set the floor, we'd have to pay more in a condemnation proceeding.
Yes, more than
Yeah,
likely.
More than likely.
Plus, we'd have to pay all the lawyers' fees,
And the commissioners,
and we'd have to go through years of litigation potentially.
potentially.
Now, with respect to the area where the property is located, are the values declining or increasing?
I'll let you address it, but I prepared a little chart just so everybody can see. This is where, on a 5-mile radius census, population has gone. You can see steadily up 2000 census, 2010 census, projected 2015. I mean, it's like more than doubled every 10 years, the population there. And you're running out of developable land. There's just not that much out there. But the property values are going up in that area, and I'll let you address it further because you're the appraiser.
We are continuing to see property values in that area continue to rise. A part of that is that at the southwest corner of Eldridge and Westheimer, within just the last few years, there's been a Super Target store opened there, and those pad sites in that area are probably selling for somewhere between $15 and $25 a square foot for a 1-acre pad. So we're continuing to see that. We're also continuing to see redevelopment of areas that were either vacant or have had older properties on them being redeveloped throughout that entire area.
So what you're telling us basically, sir, is this purchase authorization gets us the land for less than the appraised value, likely less than the value in a year or two, and anybody who's attempting to interfere with it is likely going to cost the public money. They'll have to pay increased costs and increased purchase price a year or two down the road, which comes out of tax dollars.
Correct.
Now, I just have a couple of questions, Dr. Tyler, for you. You are the person who selected C.B. Richard Ellis, is that correct?
That's correct.
Can you tell us why you selected C.B. Richard Ellis?
Well, we have used them in the past for other purchases and appraisals. They are a nationally known firm. Their quality has been consistently high in terms of their appraisal reports, and they are a recognized leader in their industry.
All right. And are they considered one of the preeminent appraisal firms here in the city of Houston?
Absolutely.
And can you advise us, please, what the source of funds will be to pay this property?
It will be the general fund, unrestricted funds.
Is Mr. Wallace here? Mr. Wallace, would you mind coming up for just 1 second? Mr. Wallace is the bond counsel for the college. Initially, under the initial purchase arrangement, Mr. Wallace, we were going to borrow some money to pay for this. You understand that?
Yes.
And because somebody filed what I personally believe is a frivolous lawsuit trying to confuse apples and oranges and drive up the cost to cost the taxpayers more money, we're no longer able to do that. Is that correct? Because the AG won't approve it.
Yes, it is. Would be an issue getting it approved by the Attorney General.
Have you evaluated whether we can purchase the land from the general revenue funds, the unrestricted budget?
Based on what I know about the budget, you can.
Okay. That would be a legal action.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Singleton, do you have anything else to add you think would enlighten the situation?
No, I think based on what we have reviewed, all of the advisors to the college, what you're paying is fair market value. Fair market value is what a willing buyer and a willing seller negotiate. And to me, it appears that you are paying the fair market value of the property.
Any further discussion? Any questions? Anybody have anything else to add? All right. We're going to vote on the motion. All in favor of the motion as read, please raise your hand to signify aye. All opposed, please raise your hand to signify nay. Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay. We'll move on to the budget.